Hey, it's Andy Samberg.
Hi, it's Elizabeth Berkley.
Hi, this is Jeff Garland.
You're watching Covino and Rich.
Covino and Rich.
And you're watching Covino and Rich.
Exactly. So he's here. He's in the studio.
Look at
him. And I'm happy to see him. Let's welcome for the first time Ken Jeong, everybody.
Hey, there he is.
Thanks for having me. What up?
Welcome to our show. You know, I feel like I know you. I feel like I've seen you for years now. You know, and it's a pleasure. Have you ever been to the studios in New York?
Oh, yes, I have.
Yeah,
years ago, I did a series tour in New York.
We missed you along the way.
Yeah. Oh, were you guys in New York?
Yeah, we were in New York until about a year and a half ago.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I missed you. I'm sorry.
No, it's totally
God,
good, man.
I'm sorry I was a hard pass on you guys in New York. I said,
Covino and Rich, no.
I said, no. Wait till they come to my home court, yo.
Yeah,
and now they're here.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I agreed.
You live in L.A., right?
Yeah, I live in L.A.
It's relatively new for us. I mean, we obviously have been here for, a while, traveling back and forth and stuff, but our show for the past year and a half.
Here in LA.
That's
right.
Yesterday
I said, I hope Ken Jeong, I hope he just has that fun face. I thought and he's just fun. He's just fun. I look at him, I'm like, oh, good, thank God. But you always confuse the actor and the person with the character. I was like, did you expect him to come in here and be like, what's up, gay boys?
I swear.
Yeah, come out, jump out naked out of a booth. Really,
swear, Ken, maybe because
stop calling me Leslie Chow.
Maybe I'm the dumbest guy alive, but
it's possible.
There's a part of me that thinks that is a real part of you. Like when you're with your pals and you're drinking booze and having fun, you do say those things. I'm like, that's him. That is a part of him. I feel like, is that fair to say, or is that just a character and that's all there is to it?
I mean, I think for acting, you're always like. What I like about playing Mr. Chow, what I love about playing Mr. Chow, you get to reference all the darkest stuff you could never say in real life. I think that when people who know me know that I'm way more, how do I say, reserved. I mean, many actors right? You meet in general, right? Anyone who plays like very, I think when you're known for playing out of like over the top characters, I think instinctively when you talk to somebody, you almost instinctively recoil and reflexively try to be more, more normal. And then if you're known to play like a normal character, they're like, when you meet them in person, they're way more over the top. I think there's a compensatory, you know what I mean? There's a compensatory mechanism. So I've always been very, even on the Hangover movies where I'm a pretty, soft-spoken guy, but then when the camera's on, I'm just a different. It's like I'm a different
switch,
guy.
Right?
Yeah, there's like a switch, and every actor is completely different. Some of them are very method. Some of them, a lot of them are better than me. A lot of them are there, but some of the everyone has their own process. Where I remember Todd Phillips in the first movie, I would just say the most vile, dark things, and then Todd would say cut, and then I would talk about. Oh, I was like, was that okay? Was that fine? And then and acting, you stupid, blah blah blah, and cut. I'm sorry, was that too much? You want me to split the difference on that? I get
that character influenced by someone in the family, someone you knew, or just sort of came out and happened.
It's funny. In the first movie, I only did the first movie. I was only there for like 4 days, and we were actually tinkering with different levels of. I really wasn't sure how to play the character and how to say it. So, if you watch in the very first scene of the first Hangover, when it takes place at night, when you hear Mr. Chow talk, in my head at least, it's a slightly lower. I hate to get all nerdy and technical, but it's a slightly lower register where. And then when he got to the desert, that was my last day of filming. My voice got lighter.
Oh, okay.
And
it changes a little.
So it's a slight change that hopefully I don't think anyone notices, but I do. I'm painfully aware. Like, it's funny when I watched a movie, I'm like, oh man, that one scene, I wasn't sure how to play it yet. And then by the desert scene, I was like, okay.
By the end, you know it.
By the end,
right.
I figured it out.
Right.
So.
All right. So Ken Jeong is here, guys. And because it's your first time on the show, I want you to come by and just hang. You're in L.A. You can come by and hang anytime.
By the way, did you learn a word already since he's been here? Did you write down compensatory, which is a form of compensate? Did you ever know that word?
Well, I know you just Googled
I
it.
wrote it down. I'm like, compensatory. Is that that's a good one.
I think so. I think it's a word.
Is that a word? Because I was
think so.
Compensatory. I was like, compensate. Okay.
Yeah,
good
one. Imagine. Well, this kind of goes along with my first question.
Like
You're a doctor, right? So tell us the story of. I guess you were always a smart kid growing up. You went to medical school, and then how do you make that transition from medical school to acting?
Right. Yeah. Even in college, I was I was seriously considering going into drama school. Like I went to school at Duke, and I was going there to go to med school, and when I just got bitten by the acting bug like sophomore year, and I got into the Duke drama school, and I ended up not.
Was there a moment? Was there like an epiphany you had, or what happened?
Yeah, I think at the end of high school, like I'd never done any theater or any performing at all, but at the very end of my senior year, there was like this mock male beauty pageant that they had, and I was a nerd, but I was like a popular nerd. I always got along with everyone, and so they voted me to participate in like with the jocks and all the cool guys, and so I remember doing this swimsuit competition. So I'm like in a Speedo, and you know, this kind of out of shape kid that's just doing like, you know, like very much like Arnold poses and stuff, like, you know, and
so
I
you
was just
were willing to throw it out there like that.
I was willing to throw it out there, but that
Wow.
was the first time I've ever like got huge laughs. I remember I had like my little Napoleon Dynamite moment, like everyone just stood up and like like had a standing ovation.
They didn't expect that from you,
No,
probably.
and they didn't expect that, and I was kind of surprised. So that definitely like subconsciously informed me at Duke, and I was like, yeah, maybe I'd take an acting class and see what happens. Yeah.
Now, was it subconsciously though? I mean, were you always this guy that wanted to put yourself out there and be funny? Because I'd imagine culturally growing up, right? You graduated early. You're a doctor. All this Asian community. Does everyone with the fact that you were this guy that had that other side to you? Were you holding it back at times? Because I mean, you could have very well taken the path of graduated early, genius kid, went to Duke, doctor, everything, and just kept that part of you buried.
No, when I was in high school, I didn't want to be an actor at all. I did not want to perform. I just didn't have any desire to do any of that. I just loved, I was a comedy nerd. I loved like early Letterman as a kid.
Once you got that Speedo, man, that was it.
Once I got that Speedo, baby, I said, oh man, this is funny. You know?
Wow.
But no, I was always a comedy nerd. Like loved Letterman, loved Eddie Murphy. You know, just I'd listen. I'd had Steve Martin comedy album. You know, like I loved comedy.
So that was like your hobby, your passion.
Yeah.
But how do you break that news to your family then? Because I imagine they have these sort of hopes for you.
Yeah. No, it was tough at Duke, where I had gotten into the acting school, and I wasn't really, and it wasn't just my parents. It was me too. I wasn't really sure what to do. I knew that I had some sort of aptitude to perform, but I didn't know how realistic it was, and I'd never left North Carolina as a kid, so I'd never been to LA, and I didn't know any of these things, and I, you know, at Duke, people were like, you know, you have potential, and you should maybe after college go to New York, maybe you shouldn't be a doctor. So but all my life I was wired to kind of succeed academic. If not go into medicine, I probably would have been like a, you know, maybe a chemist or a biologist. So I was kind of always wired that way.
Well, when you're smart to that level, can you like play mental gymnastics and sort of convince yourself that you can? Hey, if these dummies could do that, I could figure this out.
I know. I was always insecure. I was always insecure about like I just thought that, you know, I never had a lot of confidence that I could succeed on it, because I did know that I felt like show business is a bit haphazard, which we all know it is, and it's very random. And my dad did tell me, like, you know, he said, I remember him saying as a kid, because I don't doubt that you're talented. You're very talented. And he would come to all my plays and all my stuff. But he said that I just don't know if I just don't know if you're ever going to get a fair shake, you know? And I couldn't argue with that. And I was like, yeah, I mean, so what are you going to do outside of school? I mean, everyone at school is on your jock saying that you're talented and that you're great, but when you have to do this for a living, you'll be in a very competitive environment in LA or New York, and do you really think you're going to succeed? And I was like, I had just a moment of honesty. I was like, you know, I really don't know. I'm probably not.
Were you also drawn to the attention you were getting from the ladies for acting and things like that, as opposed to being the medical student guy? No, I imagine
there's going to be more attention, I would imagine, right?
I don't remember ever, like, it's funny, all of my girlfriends I've ever had were all like doctors and pre-med. So
you were getting more.
I was having girlfriends anyway, but it wasn't like
medical booty.
Medical booty, huh? That's where you was.
That's an actual term. Yes, it's from Harrison's Internal Textbook of Medicine, MB, medical booty. There's nothing degrading or dehumanizing about that. Medical booty. My wife is a doctor as ways, you know, and I call her medical booty as well. So
you did better in that department. And you go on, you get your medical degree from North Carolina. So you're a licensed physician in California. Was that for backup purposes?
I think at the end of the day, I looked at when I finally became a doctor. looked at stand-up comedy as a hobby. So when I did my residency in New Orleans, and I would go and do coffee shops and like open mics there, and with no professional ambition, like no one was. We didn't have like an A room, an A comedy room where like people from LA or New York would watch us. So I did some improv. To me, it was my golf. It was just something
something you did.
So I did come out to LA because I did win a comedy contest in New Orleans where the winner got to perform at the Melrose Improv. And so I did have a connection with Bud Friedman, who is the founder of all the improv comedy clubs. So I started performing here, and then so at the end of there was part of me that fantasized, oh, maybe I could go pro with this, but if not, at least it'd be really cool if I could live in LA and then maybe perform at like the Improv or the Laugh Factory and be that guy and that
see
was
who
good
you
enough.
meet
and see who you meet,
right.
Rub elbows with like amazing people. So I thought I would have like the best kind of combo life.
There must be doctors that you worked with that now that they see Dr. Ken, they must think this is perfect for you.
Oh yeah, one of my
you mean you created it, but they must be like, yeah, we remember he was when you were a doctor. I'm guessing the vibe around the hospital and the office was, yo, Ken's really funny, man. Like,
right.
You were probably that guy. So when they see Dr. Ken, they're like, holy shit, this is him.
Yeah, no, I have one of my best friends who still practices medicine. He's a medical consultant on my show, and so, and my wife, I met her at work, and so it's a lot of times it's funny on the show now. Because I'm one of the writers on the show, we will come any of the medical cases. Either me, Tim, or my wife Tran come up with these medical cases, and then we kind of try to integrate that into the characters. So no, it's really it is, and definitely my friend was like, when I told him I was going to leave and do acting full time, he was like, yeah, I saw that coming.
Wow. So he is a doctor and he plays one on TV. Ken Jeong is here, Covino and Rich. So on your come up before Dr. Ken and before the movies, which we got to talk about, was there someone else on their come up or someone else that helped you out along the way? Did you connect with someone that's famous now? Did you run in certain circles?
Right off the top of my head, Bradley Cooper. I worked with him a year before the first Hangover movie on All About Steve. It was with Sandra Bullock and Thomas Hayden Church, and that was like my first movie after Knocked Up. And
so you're kind of networking around that time, though, right? Like making friends in a way in the industry?
Well, to me, I was never really a networking type. I would only network with the people who I either met through work and connected with. Like, and I think that's kind of, I feel like that's how most people do it. I think if you work with, like, just Bradley and I just connected, and he knew that I was really nervous going into the movie because and he actually showed me the ropes of like camera acting, and like we became really good friends. And then a year later, coincidentally, we both got the parts in The Hangover. It wasn't like, so it was, I mean, and even Bradley said, oh, did you mention me to get the role in Hangover? I was like, no, I was actually, I actually didn't want to mention that I knew anyone,
right.
Because I wanted to get it on my own merit. So it was really kind of meant to be. And I remember early on in my career, Bradley helping me a lot with like camera acting.
Do you get a kick out of it when you see him? Because you, as you said, you knew him before you guys both sort of broke out. Is it funny when you see him on covers of magazines like sexiest guy, Bradley Cooper? Do you bust his balls about that at all or no?
Yeah, I think back in the day, everyone did kind of like. And I remember on the first Hangover, everyone the fame of it was so new to all of us at whatever level we were at our careers. It was all it was all a blur where it just became. I don't know, you just kind of, it's that Chuck Berry quote or Keith Richards saying something like, listening to Chuck Berry changed my life from black and white to Technicolor. Everything just kind of became more vivid.
Yeah, that movie launched all of your
careers.
Yeah,
it's the reason why I'm talking to you. It's the reason why I have my own show. It's the reason why I have a career.
Besides, I mean, Covino, we could talk
about... Role Models was before that, though, right?
You cut me off, because I was just going to say, before Hangover, not before, but besides Hangover, besides, Dr. Ken, which is a big show now, before Community, before this...
He was the doctor in Knocked Up?
Yeah, you the doctor in Knocked Up. I thought that we've said this before on the show, one of the most underrated comedies of the last decade or so. Role Models.
I'm glad you said that because a lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't know that movie, and anyone who anyone listening now, I highly recommend you watch it because literally anyone who is anyone in comedy is in that movie, and you're talking about like Paul Rudd, like Matt Walsh, it's Joe Latruglio, Jane Lynch. It's just this Ken Marino, and like David Wayne directs it. So to me, it's one of my. I would have to say, kind of early on in my career. I think Knocked Up, Role Models, and The Hangover were kind of my big three.
Those are like great
Those
movies.
are all classic.
Yeah,
ones.
it was just I know I was in. It really was cool
your
to be
big
a part
three
of.
are really big threes.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You know, in that movie, you mentioned everyone. You left off a guy that seems like Hollywood left off too. What's the deal with Sean William Scott? People are saying that no one he's been missing.
Well, they say typecasted, and he played this college sort of frat guy.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I remember I remember he was so. I mean,
seems like a fun guy, right?
Oh, very fun guy, and really nice guy. And I think I just remember being. I was probably most starstruck by him because of all the American Pie movies. So I was kind of I just remember the whole time on set. I don't think I've ever told him since. It was I was just always
a Stifler.
Yeah, I was afraid of saying it because I literally was like, "Oh my gosh!" Wow, my character's talking shit to Stifler right now. It's just I was always like, "Oh my god, I can't believe this." Is,
in the back of your mind while you're doing the lines. Wow, that's funny.
If people are trying to connect the dots in Role Models, it was the the Dungeons and Dragons come to life, the role playing,
like the live action role playing, the LARPing. He was a king of. I was a king of.
And you were like the bad guy. You were like the bully of the role playing world.
Yeah, and I remember doing a lot of research in that as well. It was like the most research I think I've ever done in a role because it was actually Paul Rudd and David Wayne got me that role, and I just worked with Paul on Knocked Up, and I remember he recommended me for that part, and it was the first time I ever gotten an offer, never had to audition for it, and I felt this great responsibility to I actually would go to live action role play events. I would actually go. I wouldn't participate, but I would actually go to a lot of those live events. I'd watch documentaries, read books on it. And
research.
It was I literally did research, and
that's the academic side.
Yeah, that was the academic side, and I remember in the behind the scenes video making of it, I remember David Wayne said Ken researched his role like he was De Niro or something because I really took it so seriously, and I would improvise. I absorbed all these words in LARP speak that I forgot and totally immediately after the movie was over. But I got to a point where so into the character I could improvise and all those terminology. It was crazy.
Paul Rudd's female interest was Elizabeth Banks, right?
Of
Who's
course.
also, she's terrific.
Yeah, absolutely.
Remember the asshole scene where he's at the Starbucks and he refuses to call it by the size? We played that clip recently.
We have.
Oh, really? That's great. You're a great role model. I keep telling David and Ken Marino, those guys wrote the movie, and as well as Paul, I was like, we got to do a sequel to Role Models or a spin-off or something. I tell them all the time whenever I see them.
Well, check this out. That was a big year for you because in 2008, Role Models comes out. Yeah. We liked it. I remember enjoying it and talking about it here on the show. But Pineapple Express and Step Brothers, he also had cameos in those movies. So, careers exploding, Hangover, all that stuff. And I'm wondering, as your star rises, what's the perception amongst your people? The Asian people go crazy for you? Or what's that like?
I think it's always been.
Where's your family from, by the way?
My family's Korean.
Okay, so
and I was born in America. Yeah,
I know you're American, but if you're in Korea,
in the Korean community, are you like the guy?
I remember going to Korea for Hangover 2, and I don't know if the movie was even released or did that well in Korea. And the head of Warner Brothers Korea was like, so sorry, nobody know you here, so you may not be get the star treatment. Nobody know you, so he would always. It was trying to manage my expectations, right. and it felt like a bad Borat sketch after a while. It's like, okay, no, I get it. No, you don't. You think you know, but you don't know it. You maybe nobody talked to you. No one. And I'm like,
very honest.
Okay, I get. No. You again. No. He kept. He just kept trying to be really polite and manage expectations. And I've gone to Korea a couple times since, and no, they were very receptive. And even Dr. Ken got sold in Korea last year. I think it was one of the first sitcoms, multi-camera sitcoms, to be sold. And so I went there last April, and it was just kind of.
That's got to be
surreal.
crazy for
you,
right?
Let me answer that, but just from a behind-the-scenes perspective, when you sell it to another country, that's more money for everyone, right? I mean, is that a big deal to say when people say, oh, it not only airs here, we forget the whole international market. When you sell a show somewhere else, is everyone getting a piece of that pie?
Well, I'm sure there's equity involved for everyone, particularly the studios, that kind of, because there's a lot of promotion that goes into launching a TV show. So, I'm sure there is, I'm still I'm still in my my Banana Republic clothes. I haven't upgraded to Hugo Boss yet, so I haven't seen a cent. I'm still waiting, guys. I'm still waiting.
Ken Jeong is here now. Smart guy, doctor turned actor, but you've also directed some ESPN 30 for 30 stuff. Student athlete. Were you a good athlete growing up? Did you play sports, that sort of thing? So what inspired you to make that film?
ESPN approached me to direct a 30 for 30 short. There's like 15-minute documentaries and kind of like
they're awesome.
It's the whole 30 for 30 series is just I'm a huge fan of, and they had actually approached me with directing this guy named Reggie Ho, who was a kicker for Notre Dame's '88 Lou Holtz championship team, who was a walk-on and who is pre-med and became a doctor. So there was this famous Michigan game in '88 where I think Notre Dame won by just a handful of points, and Reggie had kicked all 4 field goals, and that year he had scored more points than the quarterback, Tony Rice, and so he was like he's an Irish legend there, and I was just fascinated how he totally has shed that image and is a very prominent cardiologist in Philadelphia. So we followed him for a couple of weeks in Philly, and then went to South Bend, Indiana, and big fan of the 30 for 30 moments. I already had the ending in my head because we were able to get Reggie by himself at Notre Dame Stadium,
cool.
and he kicked a field goal. My manager actually holds it. It's just a lot of like Easter eggs there, and I envisioned, even though it was only a 15-minute film, you have to have that wide shot. I remember like the Jimmy Connors, like Flushing Meadows, where he would just come out to that court by himself, where you see Derek Whittenberg and Reynolds Coliseum, like with Survive in Advance, like you're the homecoming of it all. It just brings back, and to see his face and to capture like all the memories. Nothing was said. I mean, I by design, I didn't want to have him talk too much. I just wanted to capture what he was just thinking and looking. You could just see like a flood of memories going in, and he just got emotional.
And it's opened up everything more for you because now producing films, directing things.
Yeah.
So wow, a lot of stuff going on for Ken Jeong.
Before we talk about Dr. Ken, I'm looking at all the movies you've done. I'm thinking now Ride Along 2. So Ice Cube, Kevin Hart. You worked with The Rock on Pain and Gain, right?
Yeah,
I mean, of all these larger than life personalities, who's like hilarious? Who's fun to work with? Who do you click with? Is that like, how's your relationship with Dwayne The Rock Johnson? Is that guy unbelievable?
I love Dwayne so much. We hit it off the moment we met each other. And actually, I did. I mean, I loved Dwayne. Have you had him on the show?
Not yet. No.
He is the coolest person in the world. And here's how amazing Dwayne is. Like there was a non-televised award show that I did like in 2007, and I was just like a bit part in a sketch with him. And I had forgotten that I did that, and then when we met years later on Pain and Gain, he still remembered the sketch. He still remembered my lines. He remembers the name of every person he's ever met. He is the coolest dude in the world. And I was a big WWE fan at that time during like the Stone Cold. I don't watch it.
I don't watch it anymore, but I'm with you.
I don't watch it now, but man, that Stone Cold like Rock era to me, that I thought The Rock was like he's just funnier than any stand-up. He was so
charisma, man. Charisma,
oh my God, you could tell he would improvise. He could ad-lib with the best of them, and I mean, it's no coincidence he's just ripping and dominating Hollywood because he's that talented.
Wow. Yeah, he's worked with everybody, and you could say they've worked with Ken Jeong, but, like you said, you don't have time for the wrestling stuff anymore because you also have 2 twins, right?
Yeah, twin girls.
Well, that's how twins usually come in sets of 2. You have 2 twins.
He has twins.
They usually come in a set of 2.
Girls, so I'm wondering, that must take up a lot of your time, and also if you can give Rich some advice because he's expecting
my wife is expecting, we're expecting our first kid, a daughter, in less than 2 months.
I have one daughter.
And he has a daughter.
Myself.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, my twin girls are 9 years old, and Alexa and Zoe, and it's great. I love having girls because they'll always be daddy's little girls.
That's what I feel too. I feel
it's
like
more of a headache for the mom. I think when I do think when they
I'm happy to hear that as well.
I do think it's 9 years, and I still feel that I can't do no wrong. But I do feel that that they are closer to their but I do feel there are because everyone's female. They bond more with the mother in a different way than they can with the father. But it's just, but I love and one of my daughters, Zoe, she loves to act, and she's guest starred on Dr. Ken.
I was just asking you, does the whole family gather around to watch the show?
Yeah, they do, and they actually we shoot in front of an audience every Tuesday, and so they come by virtually every week.
Well, Dr. Ken on ABC. If you're not already checking it out, you have to check it out. And you got to hit him up to at Ken Jeong, Jeong. Hit up Ken, and Fridays on ABC, Dr. Ken. You got the no bedside manner, though, which is what makes your it's you. It's a funny, the funny version of Ken.
Yeah, he's kind of got no filter. He's almost like Larry David, like where you don't really. I think Ken is different from me. Where in real life, I think I'm very self-aware, very polite, and very kind of like I do have a filter, but I think Ken and this character doesn't. I think, but they're both very well intentioned. I think.
Dr. Ken, thank you for being here.
No,
Before you go, I have this rash I want you to check out if you don't
sure,
mind.
It looks like it's eczema. It doesn't look like it's a fungus. So I think it's
I'm
fine.
talking about the one on my inner hairy man thigh right here.
Me too.
Ken, a pleasure. Hit him up, he said, at Ken Jeong. And Dr. Ken airs on ABC's Friday night. We always talk about shows you got to check out.
Check it out.
Dr. Ken is one of them. More Covino and Rich next.